One of the most remote lakes in the country is Fontana Lake. Found deep in the forest, Fontana Lake serves as the southern boundary of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and was built in tandem with Fontana Dam to produce electricity for the Alcoa Aluminum Company in Alcoa, Tennessee during World War II. The lake is widely known for its flooding of the town of Proctor and the road to nowhere. With FDR's New Deal solidly in place, handling infrastructure updates and work programs across the United States, the country would be dragged into World War II by the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. Entrance into the war meant that it was more important than ever to provide industries with the infrastructure they needed to ramp up the war effort. Fontana Lake would become a result of the increase in industrial production. Constructed over the next couple of years, Fontana Dam would block the flow of the Little Tennessee River, a major tributary of the Tennessee River, and flood the area to the east of the dam. Fontana Lake is uniquely situated in the middle of four important boundaries that surround it. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park borders to the north of the lake, while the Nantahala National Forest borders create its southern border. With the Little Tennessee River denoting its western border and the Tuskegee River on the east side, Fontana Lake is truly a gem you could easily miss on a map. When the Little Tennessee River was dammed up and the lake created, Fontana Lake drowned the cities of Proctor and Judson. You can still see some of the remnants of this today, as there are roads and cemeteries in ruin that seem to lead into the lake. Fontana Lake was named after a former logging town. It's the largest lake in western North Carolina. It's the tallest dam east of the Rockies at 480 feet tall. The Appalachian Trail crosses Fontana Lake at the dam as it heads into the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Fontana Lake has 238 miles of shoreline. It's 17 miles long, with an average depth of 135 feet and a maximum depth of 440 feet. Fontana Lake sits at an elevation of 1,703 feet. During the construction of Fontana Lake, the towns of Judson and Proctor were flooded. Remnants of the town live forever under Fontana Lake and even emerge from the water when the dam drains the lake. Asleep beneath the waters of Fontana Lake lies the former town of Judson, North Carolina. Evacuated and flooded during the construction of Fontana Lake, Judson went from a quiet small town to a resting place for the old ways. Right on the southern edge of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Judson housed about 600 residents. The town had a school, a barber shop, general stores, a sawmill, and a post depot. Judson was coveted by his residents because of its remoteness and isolation among the forests from the rest of the world. The federal government gets what it wants, though, and it wanted Judson to flood so they could create more electricity for nearby industries. Almost instantly, the town of Judson, along with all of its structures, including cemeteries, vanished into the depths of Fontana Lake, never to be accessed again. Memories and stories were lost forever. Today, Judson still lays in wait under the water until the water level lowers enough for former Judson structures to rise above the low water lines. While these places are still accessible, they can be seen if you're in the right place at the right time. In a similar fashion to Judson, Proctor, North Carolina would succumb to the same flood. Built along Hazel Creek, Proctor was a popular lumber town attached to the Little Tennessee River. This town experienced a major boom during the early 20th century, but it died off by the time Fontana Lake was to flood Proctor. However, that didn't change the fact that, again, memories and meaningful sites would be swallowed up by the rising waters. Shortly after the creation of Fontana Lake, the National Park Service bought the only standing structure left of Proctor, the old Ritter Lumber Mill. Ritter Mill is a single structure today used by the National Park Service, with multiple cemeteries surrounding it rising just above the water. The rest of the former city of Proctor, that is, the pieces that are above lake level, was destroyed and a camping site put in its place. When Fontana Lake finally flooded the last little bits of Judson, Proctor, and other small villages, there wasn't much left. The tiny bits of land that remained were cut off from former residents by the lake. Access to these sites were impossible, even some cemeteries. In an attempt to calm the ousted residents, The government promised that it would build a new road on the north side of the lake and river that would allow these residents to access their ancestral lands and cemeteries. Nearly 3 decades later, the road had not been completed. Only a mere short tract of road had been constructed. 7 miles of road that leads to a quarter-mile long tunnel dead end is all that's left of that promise. We call it the road to nowhere. Due to concerns over the potential destruction of ecosystems in the area, the road was abandoned as its current terminus. Eventually, the Department of Interior reimbursed Swain County for their failure in construction, but that doesn't replace the lost access the former citizens wanted their loved ones and ancestors. A famous sign sits on the road to nowhere today that says, "Welcome to the road to nowhere. A broken promise. 1943 to ? With progress, sacrifice must follow. This was the case for the people and lands that reside under the waters of Fontana Lake. Out with the old and in with the new, they say. It just happened that the new order would go on to take many towns, villages, and ancestral homes from people all over Appalachia due to the Tennessee Valley Authority. While the infrastructure may have been needed, it's an affront to the people who sacrificed their homes for progress to be rewarded by failing to take advantage of this infrastructure. Over the years, the government has let dams across the nation rot and ruin. Rather than lean into more feasible forms of electricity production, they shrink back to the tried and true fossil fuels that comfort them. Maybe it's up to us to make the sacrifices of these towns to mean something. The best way we can do that is to protect and preserve every single bit of natural wonder we come across. Perhaps this effort will help absolve those sins.